going to go ahead and get started. We do have a lot to cover. I want to thank everybody for joining today. My name is Brendan Jordan, and I lead transportation and fuel programs at the Great Plains Institute. In that capacity, I serve as a facilitator for Drive Electric Minnesota, which is the state's electric vehicle partnership. Appreciate everybody taking the time to join today's webinar on EV 101. And we're going to have a lot of great speakers today. Just real quick, from a technology point of view, this is a Zoom meeting, so hopefully people know how to use that. There's basically a bar at the bottom of your screen that has things like a chat function and other features, and you can also look at who's attending the webinar. Please type any questions you have into the chat. You are muted currently, but we'll make sure and cover as many of the questions as we can in that way. So please, again, use that chat function and please enter your questions just as they come up. This is part of a series, if you're not aware of that. So there's a number of excellent webinars happening this week. And so I hope if you're interested in this one, you take the time to attend a few others. We've got a lot of great speakers lined up. So this is a great opportunity to get up to speed on a lot of different aspects of transportation electrification. We had a great one on the role of cities and counties. Later today, we've got the virtual test drive, which is the best we can do during a pandemic. We'd love to get you behind the wheels of an actual EV, but for now, we'll give you as much of that experience as we can. Later this week, we have some webinars on how Minnesota can lead. We'll talk about EVs as an economic development opportunity, how we can see new investment in manufacturing and installation of charging equipment and value for consumers, and also look at specifically at EV charging issues related to different use cases like fleets, workplaces, multi-unit dwellings, and public. This has been a group effort. I'm not going to read everybody, but I'll pause on this slide. We've had a lot of great partners with Plug in America taking the lead role, and a lot of other partners coming in to help support this effort. We're very grateful to everybody who helped make this a possibility. It's a big community and a big and expanding community in Minnesota. I'll pause here for just a moment here. You can see a number of the different organizations that supported this effort. Again, there are other webinars. You can go to one page to find the registration links for all the webinars. It's up on screen. And if driveelectricmn.org/webinar series Minnesotans Going Electric. You could also just go to driveelectricmn.org, and right on the top, there's an events tab, and that will take you there as well. So please do, if you like this one, register for a few others. And jumping into the content for today, we have some excellent speakers lined up. You can see their pictures here. And just real quick, I'm not going to read the bios, but again, I'm with the Great Plains Institute. We have Katherine Stainken, who's the policy director for Plug in America. Jukka Kukkonen is the chief EV educator for Shift to Electric, and also leads the Minnesota EV Owners Group and is an EV expert for Fresh Energy. Is also a teacher at St. Thomas, so Jukka wears many hats. Kevin Schwain is the director of program strategy and development and at Xcel Energy, and has really taken the lead on a lot of Xcel Energy's electric vehicle related programs and offerings to serve their customers. Lisa Thurstin is the Twin Cities Clean Cities Coalition coordinator and also a senior manager at the American Lung Association, and has done a lot of work supporting a number of initiatives both in Minnesota and regionally to support transportation electrification. I'm going to just mostly turn the page right now and hand things over to our next speaker. As you can see, we have a pretty tight agenda today. So Katherine, I think the show is yours, and I will stop sharing and let you share from your end.
Okay. 1 second. There we go. Now let me just, there we go. Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone for joining today. I'm excited to talk about electric vehicles. This is what we get to do every day. So it's they're such amazing cars. They're super fun, they're zippy, and we're going to get into a lot of those details. And I'm looking forward to the virtual ride and drive that we have. We'll show you a little snippet of one right now later in this presentation, but then right after this webinar, we're going to launch into our virtual ride and drive, and so give you a taste for driving electric. So Plug in America, we are the voice of the EV consumer, of the drivers, based in Minnesota, but also nationwide. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we were founded in 2008, although we actually got our start a little bit sooner than that. If you've ever seen the movie Who Killed the Electric Car or The Revenge of the Electric Car, these are big blockbuster movies there, and I encourage you to watch them. That's how we got our start. It was a pool of really passionate EV drivers that were really upset when their cars were taken from them because they were recalled and they were going to be crushed. And so those passionate drivers got together and formed Plug in America. So we focus on two core areas: policy and advocacy, which is the area that I lead up, and then education and outreach. And for that, we've got two main programs called PlugStar, and then we run National Drive Electric Week and Drive Electric Earth Day. And those last two there, those are in partnership with the Electric Auto Association and the Sierra Club. So getting into some of the basics about electric vehicles, we are definitely not talking about the internal combustion engine. That's the first little diagram there. And we're not talking about hybrids. That would be something like the Prius. That's a lot of policymakers, they're usually confused because they know that the Prius has a battery in it. Well, it's a different type of battery, different drivetrain, different everything. And hybrids like the Prius, they're still fueled by gas for the most part. What we are talking about when we talk about electric vehicles are the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles and the battery electric vehicle, and that would be the last one there. So these the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, something would a good example is like the Chevy Volt with a V, and then the battery electric vehicle, a good example would be the Bolt with a B, or the Tesla Model S, or the Y, or there's so many different makes and models coming out these days. The Rivian pickup truck, that will be a battery electric vehicle. And we'll get into some of these in the next slide. So here are all of the different makes and models of EVs available today. On the left, you can see these are the pure electric vehicles, the ones running just off the battery on the electric vehicles. And on the right, we're seeing the ones that are the plug-in hybrid vehicles. Over the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, we'll be seeing so many more makes and models come out of just the pure electric vehicles. And these vehicles on the left, you can see they have ranges from about anywhere from 100 to upwards of more than 300 miles. And some of the new makes and models that are coming out in the market, I don't think you're going to see anything that's really less than 200 miles, which if you think about it in a day, unless you're commuting, really far from one end of Minnesota to another, you're not really going to need that much range. You typically only need maybe about 30 miles of range in a day to get you from point A to point B to work, to pick up your kids, to wherever you're going. About 30 miles of range is pretty much the average for a driver. So these are all the different cars that you can purchase today on the market. So another common question that we get asked a lot is where you can charge or how you can charge. And there's 3 different types of charging. There's level 1, level 2, and then something that's called DC fast charging, direct current fast charging, or some people refer to it as level 3, but you should just go with DC fast charging. That's kind of the more common accepted language there. Level 1 charging, this is it's the same exact outlet that you would plug your computer into, your toaster into, your curling iron into. That is producing 120 volts. And if you plugged in your car with, there's a adapter piece, but if you plugged your car into that type of power outlet, you'd be getting about 3 to 5 miles of range per hour. So if you wanted to charge, you could, overnight, you'd equal about 40 miles by plugging in overnight. And when you'd wake up, you'd see that 40 miles of charge. The level 2 power, that's about 240 volts. And this is typical to a dryer outlet. So I'm sure a lot of you have washers and dryers, and the dryer, if you didn't know it, it's actually pulling energy out at 240 volts. So this is the same type of power output that's used in level 2. And for this, you're going to get about 25 miles per hour of charging. So usually in some public locations, maybe out at grocery stores or at your library, or you'll see these, they're often referred to as public level 2 charging stations. And then finally, we've got the DC, as I mentioned, the direct current fast charge. And this is where you can go from essentially 0 to 80% or full in about 30 to 40 minutes, or depending on the power output here, we're seeing that take even less time. It can take even between 15 and 20 minutes, depending on that power output. So typical power outputs are kind of at 50 kilowatts, but I've seen upwards of 150 kilowatts. And then we're also seeing now the super fast charge, which is at 350 kilowatts. So we're getting much closer to, I guess, how you would, technically fill up your gas car. You can take anywhere from, 3 to 5 to 7 minutes, depending on how big your tank is. It's kind of the same thing based on the power output for your electric vehicle. So where you charge? Well, there's plenty of charging stations located around Minnesota, and there's more and more that are going to be coming online in the next 1 to 3 to 5 years as we get ready for this growth and adoption of electric vehicles. And there's a lot of different charging apps that are out there that you just load onto your phone, and it's really easy then to go and look at where you are, where you're going, and then you can plan out your route and you can plan where you're going to charge. And this is if you don't have charging at home, which most people do. These apps are really helpful to show you where the charging stations are. So this, I did a screenshot from plugshare.com, but you can also download it onto your phone, like I said. And then on the right, I've listed a number of different network providers or charging station providers there that you can download any one of their apps as well and see all the different charging stations in and around Minnesota. And what you'll get for some of them there is that bottom right picture. You'll get like a swipe card where you can just easily tap that onto the charging station, and then you'll be hooked up and connected to go. There's also within each of the vehicles, every single vehicle can come with like a route planner that shows you where the charging stations will be. So you're never in a situation where you're worried like where's the charging station. There's plenty of different apps and methods and maps to show you where all these charging stations are. So some of the benefits for consumers and why everyone loves to drive electric, it really comes down to the affordability aspect of it. The upfront price is sometimes still a concern for many drivers, but that is coming down rapidly in price because the batteries are coming down in price. So this bottom graph here, it's a little maybe tricky to understand there, but essentially you want to focus on the 3 downward sloping lines there, which is showing the ownership cost over time. And so you can see there that around 2024 is when those downward sloping lines are going to cross with the more horizontal lines, which that is one of those lines is representing the conventional car, which is the gas car. So most experts would say that around 2024 is when the initial price of an electric vehicle will be at parity with a gas car. Now that's just talking about the upfront sticker price. When we talk about the savings that a consumer will see from the fuel, which is electricity, and from the minimized maintenance costs over the lifetime of the vehicle, that's really where you're seeing so many of the savings, and this adds up to literally thousands of dollars every year. So Consumer Reports, they looked at the average maintenance and repair costs over the vehicle lifetime, and they found that for the battery electric vehicle and the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, it was half of what it is for a gas car. Some other benefits here are the performance. And so I'm going to let Jukka talk about this, and especially the issues with the snow and the cold, but you can drive in the cold. These cars do function in the cold. And there's that instant torque that you get with a battery, with an electric vehicle that you don't have with the gas vehicle. And that's why maybe you've seen YouTubes of, a Tesla next to a Lamborghini or something, and you'll see that the Tesla wins because, off the starting line, because it does have that instant torque. Some other benefits, I'm sure you've seen all this throughout different reports and whatnot, but there's the environmental aspect, there's air quality benefits, and then there's also the issue of national security because you are fueling your car with electricity that is, essentially homegrown in Minnesota or in the United States, and we're not importing then different foreign oil. Here's another slide that shows those battery prices falling down. And I just wanted to point out again that at 2024, there's the price where the battery looks like it'll be less than $100 per kilowatt hour. And that looks like it's a lot of experts agree that that would be the tipping point here where we're going to see really massive adoption of electric vehicles. Here's a quick slide about the nationwide sales, and I could go into a lot of detail about this, but basically, I think, what should I point out about this? I think maybe on the left here, just to show you that all of the different automakers have now been investing in electric vehicles. It's not just Tesla anymore. It's not just GM. It's BMW, it's Honda, it's Ford, it's Kia, it's Toyota, it's Volkswagen. I mean, everyone has a make or model of an electric vehicle and has committed to either a whole line or, if not, transitioning their whole fleet over to electric. So in case you are a policymaker listening to this webinar, I just wanted to let you know that we do have a resource out there that's called the Achieve Transition to EVs Model Policy Toolkit. And this will walk you through a number of the different policies that you can be enacting to help prepare your city or your community or your transit agency or whatever the case might be, your business, to be ready for the growth of electric vehicles. And then also a quick note here about other ways that you can get involved as a driver in Minnesota. You can participate in National Drive Electric Week and Drive Electric Earth Day. And you can do this virtually and also in person if we are back to doing things in person at some point in time in the future. So I think that was everything that I wanted to share with you all today. I'm going to pass it all to Jukka.
All right. Thank you, Katherine. And good afternoon, everyone. Good to talk to you about electric vehicles here in Minnesota. That's my portion of this presentation here. So my name is Jukka Kukkonen, and I'm a chief EV educator and strategist for Shift to Electric. I've worked with electric cars for the last 10 years. So in and out of this one, it's really fun field. Great developments all around. So next slide, please. Here's a picture of my family 8 years ago, 2012, when we got our first Nissan Leaf. And that was a great car. So we've driven 8 years in our family already. So there's no question, can you drive in Minnesota? Yep, you can. No problem with that. My daughter, who is there, was 8 years old. Now she's 16 right now. And so she has a driver's license now. And we got her 2013 Nissan Leaf used a year ago, and that cost $7,500. So there are really good used EV deals also available in the market. And that car, by the way, has 84% of the battery capacity left, even though it's 8 years old or 7 years old car already. So it can easily last another 7-8 years. So I'm expecting that battery to last 15 years without any issues with our use.
Jukka,
next slide.
One of the panelists was asking Jukka if you could speak a little slower.
Okay, sorry. Just trying to make sure that I get through the process here. So Minnesota Department of Transportation is putting out really nice electric vehicle dashboard. So if you want to see what's happening in Minnesota with EVs, you can go there. You can see how many charging stations, public charging stations we have. We have over 1,000. One thing to remember about charging, though, is that majority of the charging happens at home. Over 80% of the charging happens at home. So everybody who starts driving electric, they actually learn that they are charging at home and they are not using the public charging as often as they think that they otherwise could. For example, my wife has driven 8 years with electric cars and never used a public charging station. So that's a good example of that. But you can see also we have over 14,000 EVs in Minnesota right now. And if you go into, they have the map there, you can go and look at how many EVs are in different counties. So you can kind of scroll around and see the different situations there. Could I get the next slide, please? And also in this electric vehicle dashboard, there's a list of different vehicles, makes, and also if you go in there, there's models also, which models are represented or registered in Minnesota. And as you can see, Tesla has a clear lead in this one. That's because they have the best EV availability and also really good cars. They right now are about 70 to 80% of the market, just to give you an idea. So their registration numbers will be growing much faster in the future in this slide. I'll go back to that a little later. Next slide, please. So who are these EV owners? Well, we have over 2,000 members at Minnesota Electric Vehicle Owners Group. We started in 2012, and we have really grown well. We have meetings. We do a ton of these different kind of events. and share our experiences. That's the idea. Owners who drive every day here in Minnesota are the best advocates and best ones to really tell how this works in Minnesota. What is it like to own, charge, and drive electric vehicles in Minnesota? So that's what we try to do. You don't have to own an EV to become a member. Just join our group. You can find our website, mnevowners.org, or go to facebook.com and find our group, the MNEV Owners, and get involved and talk with owners and see what they say about their experiences. If you're considering buying EV, it's always good to talk with existing owners. Next slide, please. We also have new EV experience gallery, where we have our owners who have put together 2 to 5 minute videos about their experiences. So you can go there. I think we have 20 different videos there to just see what kind of cars they are driving, how are they charging their cars, what's their setup. Many of these are actually tied to solar because we did this as part of National Solar Tours, but we are adding more videos here that are not necessarily tied to solar panels. So you don't have to own solar panels to drive electric. That's not necessary. You can just drive with the grid power. It's really getting cleaner all the time. It's excellent resource, so no problem with that. So don't worry about it. If you look at the videos and say, everybody has solar on their roof, do I have to get solar? It's like, no, that's not necessarily. You can just plug into your 120 outlet and start driving. Next slide, please. If you want to learn what kind of EVs we have available in Minnesota, we have the EV info list there at the evinfolist.com. I have one here. So it provides all the information about these cars. You can do comparisons of the pricing, of the battery size, range, charging capabilities. And my favorite column here is the 0 to 60 miles per hour acceleration. That's what you use to choose which car you want, and the rest of it is just nice to know information. So cool thing about EVs is that you have a lot of power, so acceleration numbers are also good, so they are fun to drive. Everybody who starts driving electric, they're like never going back. This is just car 2.0, so much fun to drive and own. Next slide, please. The big challenge we have right now in Minnesota is our vehicle availability. So EV availability at dealers is generally very poor, unfortunately. So if you look at here, the list, I actually made this list last night, so it's pretty up to date. We have the makes and models of EVs available theoretically in Minnesota. We have the number of dealers that, for example, Audi dealers or BMW dealers or Chevy dealers and so forth that are in Minnesota. And then looking at how many EVs are at the dealership lots right now. And if you look at those numbers, Audi e-tron, there's 25, that's a pretty good number. But then if you look at, for example, BMW, we have they have 5 models theoretically in Minnesota available and only 2 units out of those here. We have okay number of Chevy Bolts, but at the same time, if you look at that, there's 95 Chevy dealers in Minnesota, and some of them might have 10 Bolts, and majority of them probably don't have any. So it's really hard to go and buy an electric car if there's none. And good example here, for example, is then Ford Fusion. Energy, there's 1 in Minnesota. At the same time, there's 278 Fusion internal combustion engine or hybrid models. So you know what the dealers are selling. They're selling what's on their lot, and that's the challenge for us. Customers can't find these cars, and dealers don't have any incentive to sell them if they don't have them on their lot. Tesla, of course, has availability for their cars. So they have 2 stores, one in Eden Prairie and one in St. Paul, in Maplewood. So that's why they are selling 70 to 80% of the market, because they have the cars on their lots right now. But there are other good dedicated dealers who are selling well, like Mitsubishi Outlander. If you're looking for one plug-in hybrid of those, go to White Bear Mitsubishi. They have probably 75 of those 82 vehicles there. So they are nation leader in selling Outlander PHEVs. So that's a good place to do. So some of the dedicated dealers are really doing a good job with it, but unfortunately, majority of them don't have much stock. Same with the Toyota Prius Prime and 5, and Toyota Prius is 136 in Minnesota. So that's our challenge. And I'll explain in the next slide why this is important. So here, if you look at this slide, this was supposed to have a little build, but it doesn't have. So I'll try to explain how it builds. If you look at the Ford, on top of it, let's concentrate on the top part. So there's a Ford Fusion plug-in hybrid titanium, and then traditional Ford Fusion titanium. If you look at the pricing, it's a little hard to see, but it's about $35,000. There's just $500 difference. So just the basics, if you think about it, the base price is pretty much the same. The plug-in hybrid gets over 100 miles per gallon on EV driving, and the other car gets 25 miles per gallon. Which one should you do? Which one should you buy if it's like $500 more to get that much better gas mileage? It's very clear that you should get the plug-in hybrid model. Then if you know that, hey, I also get $4,600 tax credit for it, now this car is actually $4,000 cheaper than the other one and gets better gas mileage, and you can drive it with electric, and it has less maintenance. It's very clear that Ford Fusion plug-in hybrid is much better deal, but at the same time, if you remember from the previous slide, there's only one in Minnesota right now, and there's 278 of the other ones in Minnesota. So that is a little challenge. We have to do a lot of education for general public for them to understand that the mantra really is no plug, no deal. You always get a better deal if you go with a plug. The other example I had here is Toyota Prius Prime, which is, again, plug-in hybrid option, then Toyota Prius and Toyota Corolla hatchback. And if you look at the pricing there, after federal tax credit, the Prius Prime is $2,000 cheaper than the Prius, so it's a better deal, and it's only $2,000 more than Corolla hatchback. So I would go with the Prime, again, getting better car with that. So that's what I would recommend people always, just do your homework, learn more, make sure that your mantra is no plug, no deal when you look into new cars. And if you get the next slide there, we'll get a lot of different resources here. One of the resources I wanted to share is mnevbuyer.com that we have built, which provides you all of these basic information about charging economics and where to buy cars. So check that one when you're considering EVs. I think that's all slides from me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jukka. Can you all hear me? All right. So again, I'm Kevin Schwain. I lead electric vehicle initiatives for Xcel Energy. Maybe we could go to the next slide, Katherine. So obviously we're an electric utility. We don't make cars. We don't, we're not working on the next battery technology or breakthrough. But we do believe there's, a strong rationale for electric utilities to be really engaged in this ecosystem that we've been hearing about from Katherine, from Jukka, and we're going to hear more about from Lisa. When you step back and look at this growing market, and some of the barriers, quite honestly, that we still have. Jukka was touching on one key barrier there, but we do see a number of barriers that electric utilities are really well suited to address. And so we've put forward a plan that we think will help us get started serving customers that are interested and really addressing some of these key barriers that you see described in this slide. So I'll talk about this at a pretty high level today. I'm probably going to skip over some of my material just in the vein of keeping this truly at the 101 level. I realize we do have a number of folks here that are perhaps new to electric vehicle technologies. I also see, though, in the list, we have some folks that I would say qualify for at least the 201 class and maybe much more. So I probably have a shout out to them here as well, if that's okay. So before we move on, I think you can probably read this pretty well for yourself, but at Xcel Energy, we have started looking at a few of these segments, that we think are going to be critical for us to address kind of out of the gate. The first is home charging, whether you're, living in a building or in a single family home. As we said, we know the majority of charging can happen at home. That's going to be convenient. It's going to be lower cost. And the infrastructure, quite honestly, is easier to manage as well. And so we do see charging at home is a really critical element that we'd like to help customers with. Likewise, we also know that fleets are important. In some cases, these fleet operators are really sophisticated buyers. They're paying lots of attention to the costs, the tax benefits, the operating costs. And so, we can imagine a future, that when Catherine was talking about these cost curves coming down, we know that these fleets, when those economics turn, are going to be adopting this technology very quickly. So we want to make sure we're ready to provide them with a clean, safe, affordable fuel, which is electricity. And finally, fast charging in the public area. I think we all know this intuitively, and there's a lot of data to back it up. The truth of the matter is, even if you have a good solution to charge at home, if you don't see charging out in the public, if you don't have confidence that you can, accomplish your daily errands, if you can't drop your kids off at school, and know that you'll be able to get charging when you need it, when you're out and about, that's a problem. And so we do want to make sure that there is enough public charging available so that we all feel comfortable driving an electric vehicle here in Minnesota. And we do think that the programs that we can offer here as a utility will specifically address some of these key barriers. Again, it's not creating the availability of the cars necessarily, but certainly things like helping customers become aware of this technology. Some of the questions that I'm seeing in the chat that hopefully we'll get to talk about here. Certainly the upfront cost of charging infrastructure, I'll touch on a little bit as well. Certainly as an electric utility that builds electrical distribution equipment, that's something that we're very good at and kind of comes naturally to us. The final piece, the final type of program we try to offer is really optimizing the energy for this use for electric vehicles. We know that for an everyday driver like you or I, we're going to need to make this really simple. And it can't be scary, it can't be complicated. It's going to have to be easy. But at the same time, I think that's the challenge for a utility like Xcel to say, how do we help you do that? How do we help you charge when it's good for the grid? It's going to be greener, it's going to be cheaper, in a way that still helps you accomplish, all of your driving needs. So, we do again feel like that's another key role for a utility like Xcel. With that, I want to zoom out for just a moment on the next slide, if I could, Catherine. And maybe this is my shout out to the 201 crowd, not just the 101 crowd. Already today, we're hearing lots of facts and figures. We're hearing, things like kilowatt hours, stuff that, I talk about every day and I get to be comfortable with, and I think many of the panelists here are. I also have the opportunity to talk to folks on a very regular basis that are new to the technology and don't necessarily understand, the difference between level 1 charging and level 2 charging, a kilowatt hour, and the costs associated with these different charging options. So I do think it's really important for the 201 crowd to understand that our language matters, how we talk about the benefits, and quite honestly, the challenges in these early days of the market too. It's something we need to take seriously. And so, one thing I'm able to do in my role, not just to talk to folks, but we also get to do research on, what are the messages that resonate with customers? What are the things that raise concern with customers? And, we've tried to bake that into our communications as best we can to make sure we're really kind of meeting the customer where they're at, the new driver, where they're at, whether they're showing up at an auto dealer, whether we're sending you an email because you're a customer of Xcel Energy. All of these are really important touch points in which hopefully we can kind of draw you into this electric vehicle ecosystem, and most definitely want to make sure we're not pushing people out. And so with that, you see on this slide here, some of the notes from an announcement our company made earlier this year around our electric vehicle vision. And again, it's in one breath, there's a lot of numbers on here, but I want to maybe just distill this down to a few key messages that I always come back to when talking to people about electric vehicles. Because again, I think it's just so important that we really try to make this simple. We make it fun. We've already heard that, and I think we never want to lose sight of those two messages. I think the additional 2 talking points, and the ones that we often back up with numbers here at Xcel, are the fact that you can save money. You see numbers here on the slide. You saw Catherine's numbers comparing the price of electricity to the price of gasoline. Well, here in Minnesota, our electricity is really affordable. We often talk about at Xcel, you can charge for well less than $1 a gallon equivalent. And in fact, if you take advantage of one of these off-peak pricing opportunities or a special rate or program, you can charge for well less than $1 a gallon equivalent. And so we know that that's really compelling. And that's really part of the reason we're excited about this electric vehicle future, is we know that this is going to be good for everybody's pocketbook. The second, and of course, is really around emissions and carbon savings. I often say if we're to be known for one thing, I mean, well, I wish maybe it was electric vehicles. The truth is what we should be known for is clean energy. We're the first utility to come forward with a vision and plan for 100% carbon-free energy. So of course that forms a backdrop here to why we want to be doing things like electric vehicles when you are on this pathway to carbon-free energy, and using that for things like transportation just makes a ton of sense. Well, the truth is that future is great and that future is compelling, but it's already great for the environment today. You can reduce emissions by almost 2/3, today on our systems. And so, understanding both the power of this economically and the benefits for the environment are really compelling messages that, again, they won't translate to everybody. But again, I would just offer to you all that some of those core messages are really important to reinforce when we're talking to our friends and neighbors about why electric vehicles are really car 2.0, as I think Jukka said. I want to start using his statement there. So a few more points, perhaps, that I'll make if we go to the next slide, Katherine. I spoke at the beginning about some of the different things that we're doing at Xcel, and I'll touch on just a few of those at a high level here. I think I'm expecting that there are a number of folks on the call here that are customers of Xcel, so you're starting to see more and more of this. Whether it's our Twitter feeds, some of the stuff we do on social media, our website. One thing I'll call out here is we do, in these past couple of months, have introduced a new tool on our website. So it's greatly improved. It's actually some of the same engines, some of the same partners that Plug in America uses for their website, I believe. But certainly customized for our grid, our programs, and our geography here. And so if you actually go to ev.xcelenergy.com, you'll get to see that tool, and it'll help you do things like select an EV that fits your driving patterns. It'll help you identify some of those local dealers that Jukka was talking about. It's going to help you estimate the cost of energy, depending on which rate you are on. And it also, just this past week, we introduced some new functionality that's going to help you estimate the cost of wiring your home. As a few of you know, we've had the opportunity to run a number of pilots here for residential customers over the past couple of years. And so we've been mining that data, trying to learn about what type of housing configuration lends itself to different sorts of wiring opportunities. And so we are really trying to bring that information together onto our website so that customers have access to it and can make a good call for themselves about, again, which rate option do I want to be on? How do I want to charge my car? And how will this work best for me? So again, ev.xcelenergy.com is a new site. It is, we're continuing to add functionality to it. And for you all here, I would emphasize we love feedback on it. So if you're out there and you see something that you like, let us know. To the extent you see something that you think can be improved, definitely let us know as well. You can also see over here on the right, there's some of the collateral that some of which that shows up at our website. You see a pillar there that is going to start appearing at dealerships, some local dealerships that are selling a lot of electric vehicles, because we do understand that, again, we're part of the ecosystem here. And as Jukka said, making sure we're working with folks like the local auto dealers, some of the groups represented in these discussions, these webinars that we're having over the next couple of days here, is really important. And I think that you'll see that's really a theme of ours, is partnership with the local ecosystem. So to move on to the next slide, Katherine, this is an example of the 201 and maybe 301 class. I'm just going to leave this as an example of how we are exploring a number of different ways we can be helping with There's different models out there. We're experimenting with a number of them. so that we can really help both make this easy, a turnkey experience for customers, but also defray the cost, because we do know that while sometimes you can pretty easily go to the web and figure out how much it costs to buy a new car, figuring out how much it might cost to wire your garage or to support your fleet, for example, with electric fuel, is a much more complicated endeavor. And it's we just don't have those rules of thumb available today that we'd like to help customers make a good decision. So we know that this upfront help is going to be really important. To move on, I think there was maybe one or two other slides I wanted to touch on. This is another good one that could look a little bit scary. Again, I think what I said before is we know that one of the things we can do as utility is help make it easy to charge. Along with being easy, though, is we want it to be affordable. And we know that the one truth of electricity is that the grid changes at every hour of the day. So those costs will change, the amount of renewable energy on the grid will change. And whether it's using time of use pricing, like you see on the right side, or some smart charging programs, we're really interested in working with customers to present options that'll make it, hopefully very easy to really optimize the way your car is charged. And so we've got some of these time of use pricing options available now, and we've got some smart charging programs actually that will be coming out hopefully next year here with some filings that we've got coming out soon. And then finally, Catherine, I think I might pass on the remainder of my slides here and just close with, maybe a final call out. This is a good slide, I think, maybe for a call out. If it's possible that Lisa will be speaking to this project. I'm looking to see if she nods or otherwise, but it's, I think one project that we're really excited about for this next year. It should show the Lung Association as a partner here as well now. But I think it's going to be yet one more way we make charging available to customers, and not just charging, but also a new mobility service here for us in the Twin Cities in a way that's accessible to all, and really going to be visible as well for those of us in the Twin Cities. And so hopefully a great model that we can bring to the rest of Minnesota shortly. Certainly one of my favorite projects. I would close maybe just, again, circling back to the 101 conversation with a call out to test drive. Obviously today, I think, there's a virtual test drive, it attempts to give you that experience, virtually here. And I'm excited about that. But I would say in addition to just making sure we circle back to these themes around this being fun, this being easy and normal, affordable, clean, I think many folks will tell you, and you've already heard today, that simply driving an electric vehicle is enough to make people believers, right? And anything we can do to get ourselves and our friends and neighbors into the seat of an electric car goes a heck of a long way. So I would encourage you all to do so. And with that, I look forward to more discussion.
Great, thank you. With that, I'll try to shorten some of my comments here so we have plenty of time for Q&A at the end here. We've had a really great lineup of speakers so far, and I'm going to share a few of the components I work with with partners and projects and how they fit together. Keep in mind, this is just one part of the bigger puzzle. And as introduced, I am with the American Lung Association and also coordinate the Twin Cities Clean Cities Coalition, which is one of nearly 100 coalitions found in the U.S. and part of the U.S. Department of Energy's Clean Cities program. The #1 single source air pollution is motorized vehicles. And our mission is the American Lung Association mission is to save lives by improving lung health and preventing lung disease. So these two pieces, the mission of EV engagement in the community and with partners and the American Lung Association go really great hand in hand. Next slide. So I'd like to take a few minutes to share why electric vehicle engagement in Minnesota is so successful. This slide represents many great public-private partnerships showing what a varied group of stakeholders, as we've seen with the speakers ahead earlier, can accomplish when working toward a common goal. I hope this will serve as a model and similar projects elsewhere. With over 14,000 electric vehicles registered in Minnesota, we know this represents a relatively small percentage of total vehicles on the road. But we also know that they are already preventing air pollution and reducing our dependence on fossil fuels. Not only is a network of charging sites necessary to make electric vehicles a more appealing choice to more people, we also know that without outreach and education for both fleets and the general public, are less inclined to adopt EVs in their fleets and homes. So this is the part where we fit in. In the past, before COVID, we worked with partners to bring electric vehicles and charging to where the crowds already were. And this included parades, exhibits such as the Minnesota State Fair, home shows, city sustainability events, community events, and workplace charging with ride-in drives. Today, we're continuing this education through virtual events, videos, and webinar contests. Here on this slide, I have a few examples. We've been privileged to work with assorted filming companies, one being Motor Week, where we did a video showcasing EVSE projects along the corridor to ease the anxiety of long distance travel for both public and fleets. Another filming company is What Fuels You, where they do provide road trip documentaries. These are short, real stories of EVs driving in Minnesota. Next, we're now on to virtual ribbon cuttings. We need to continue to get the word out that the charging projects are still expanding, and we've worked with a great variety of utilities all across Minnesota, including Xcel Energy. And then finally, our work with Clean Cities also allows us to provide support to fleets and for fleet analysis and grant support, as Kevin mentioned with our latest EV Community Hub project, where they'll be helping to install EVSE and electric vehicle charging in both St. Paul and Minneapolis, as well as a car share vehicle deployment project. So, and then we know that everyone's been saying that we still need to do get the hands-on experience. So we've begun to develop hybrid engagement projects. So webinars such as this, and then utilizing safe means and practices of test drives through the dealerships with proper protocols as recommended by the CDC and our governor. We've even upped the engagement interest by adding challenges and prizes as well. Next slide. So my final slide shows an assortment of resources for every level, going counterclockwise as soon as it switches. The EV info list Jukka mentioned already. This link also includes other links Jukka mentioned, such as the Minnesota EV buyers. Below that is a website that shows charging resources if you live in a multi-unit dwelling. The MidwestEvolve.org icon is a great website, which includes survey data, vehicles, charging stations, incentives, and more. The American Lung Association EV report was just published this fall, and this report details the benefits of transitioning to electric transportation. In the coming decades, using EVs could lead to avoiding approximately, here come a bunch of big numbers, over 6,300 premature deaths, preventing more than 93,000 asthma attacks, and over 416,000 lost workdays per year based on emission reduction by in 2050. And so all this data again is online and it's quick Google research. Next, I love this tool, the Evolution tool. This tool was developed by Argonne National Laboratory, and I think it would answer many of the questions that I've been seeing coming through on the chat. It provides information so you can learn everything about EVs and also what's included in providing a variety of types of output when you're to help you make your choice. So do you want to look at the benefits of EV by savings in dollars and gallons, or by total cost of ownership, or even by savings as a function of average speed? And then finally, my last one is Drive Electric Minnesota, which Brendan touched on in the beginning. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Katherine for a short EV.
Actually, I think everyone, since we have so many good questions in the chat, we might switch to some of the Q&A now, and then if folks need to drop at the top of the hour, you can, and then if you want to stick around, then we'll play that virtual test drive video there. So Dean or Brendan, did you want to lead us through some of those questions from the chat?
Looks like you're muted, Dean.
Go ahead, Brendan, you can do it.
Sure. Well, there are a number of questions in the chat function. Let me take it back up to the top here, and we'll just cover what we can in the time that we have available. Can you talk about the kind of the range of ranges, you know, ranging from the, you know, plug-in hybrid to vehicles with a much longer range? That might be a Jukka question.
I'll quickly say. Yeah, so you can find all the information at the EV info list, again, the ranges. But if you look at the basic plug-in hybrids, the shortest ones have about 20 miles of range. And then after that, it mostly the hybrid mode. So you can go as far as you want. No range limitation there per se. And then old times, range was big discussion with the battery electric vehicles like 5 years ago when we had smaller batteries and shorter ranges. So we're talking about less than 100-mile ranges. So then you have to kind of think about how you're using your car. Nowadays, last year, average range for EVs sold in Minnesota, battery electric ones, was over 200 miles. So it's not an issue anymore the same way it used to be 5 years ago. Exactly like Katherine said, it's less of a challenge right nowadays. And I will address another question that I saw there about the winter driving. In wintertime, yes, you get a shorter range, but again, because we have a longer ranges nowadays, it's less of an issue. You might, old times 5 years ago, I call old time, that's old times 5 years ago, you might have only 73 miles with your Nissan Leaf, and in the really cold winter days, maybe you get 35 to 45 miles. That, of course, is a big hit there. But because the heating takes the same amount of energy, now if you have 250 miles range car and 40 miles is gone from that, you still have 200 miles of left. So it's not the same kind of challenge anymore that it used to be.
Yeah, and I would just add that it's good to think about your cars like the cell phone batteries, and how initially the like the iPhone 3, it would last, you know, a little bit of time, and then I had to be charging it like 5 or 6 times a day. And now the iPhone 11 and the 12, you can charge that last a long time, like last like 48 hours or something. So it's the same thing with the car batteries. They used to you know, only have so much life in them, and then now the batteries are improved upon and they last that much longer. And the same thing with the cold too. Your phone doesn't work well when it gets hot. In fact, mine shuts off, which is super annoying. And then if it gets super cold, it doesn't work either. So same thing, not to that extent though with an electric car, but you will get a little bit, yeah, like Jukka said, you'll get a little bit less capacity.
Yeah, I was just going to say electric cars don't start off in a hot temperature.
Sorry,
they still work.
There's anybody out about that.
A little bit more advanced thermal management system in these systems, so no problem with that.
So there was some discussion in the chat about the tax credit. So can you all give us just where do things stand with the federal electric vehicle tax credit? It is expired for some automakers, but not others. It's maybe a little complicated.
Sure, I can touch on that a little bit. So for the federal tax credit that was available to each to 200,000 vehicles made per manufacturer, and some of those manufacturers have sold that many of their cars already, so the tax credit isn't available to them. But then there's the step down of that tax credit. The full amount could be up to $7,500, and then now it steps down to about 50% of that and 25% of that over a number of months. So I think the only automakers that have hit that full amount cap has been Tesla and GM, and I believe that Nissan is hitting that soon if they haven't yet. The other automakers out there, though, like Toyota or BMW or Rivian or automakers like that, they have not hit their caps yet. And so I saw someone in the chat wanting to know where's a good website to kind of look at that. I don't know if you all have a different suggestion, but I would say, though, that now with President-elect Biden and there's an overwhelming support in Congress now to extend that federal tax credit out to make it last longer for more drivers for a longer period of time. So I would think that we're hopeful that in the next administration, or perhaps even in December, as extenders are being discussed within Congress, there's an opportunity to extend that tax credit out or see something different, maybe a rebate or something similar to that. So we're hopeful that that'll be available to more drivers going forward into 2021 and 2022.
And I would add to that if you're thinking of buying an EV, I think Nissan is still quite a ways away from it because they haven't sold as many units this year as they were expecting. So I think we're still okay with that. But anyone who is looking into buying an EV, they don't have to worry about it because you know at the time of your purchase if you are getting a full tax credit from car manufacturer's perspective. It depends on, of course, your own taxes, what you can claim there. But and then, as Katherine said, it starts to step down. So it's not like it goes from full 7,500 to zero, for example. It's the first two quarters, it's still the same, and then it drops to half, and then it just drops to 25. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's you will know what the situation is when you're buying a car.
So we've had a few questions come in, I think from the perspective of, hey, I'm thinking about buying an EV and I want to charge it at home. And what do I need to do to upgrade? Do I need to upgrade my panel? Should I look at level 1 or level 2? Kind of what's involved in that? I wonder if somebody could give us just kind of a quick, what are some rules of thumb for how to navigate that?
You should talk to Kevin.
I'm happy to start. I think it can be a bit daunting. I am reminded, though, of some advice that I know I've heard from Jukka and I've repeated quite a bit, and that's, quite often the best solution is to come home and plug it in, right, into a regular 110 outlet, and to don't be in a rush to figure this out necessarily. I think there's going to be some people that know their driving patterns and know and want to figure this out in advance, and that's great. But you don't necessarily need to. The truth of the matter is that an average driver can just about get by with level 1 charging. And so you don't necessarily need to be in a rush to figure this out and spend hundreds or thousands of dollars to upgrade your home. So I think that would be the number one thing I would say. I think the other piece is, when you talk about wiring a home, unless you're a licensed electrician yourself, you really do need an expert. So we certainly have some experts that we use. Certainly a lot of dealers, like the Tesla dealers, have a network that they recommend. They're going to help you understand, your home and what's going to be required. I do think there's value in working with an electrician that knows EV charging. And, again, I think we've seen value in an electrician that knows the rates and programs for their utility, because there are some opportunities to fine tune that. And so, again, I would start with Jukka's advice, but also suggest, again, either the dealer that you're working with or your utility like Xcel will have some recommendations.
There's more and more resources out there from your utility and other sources to try to make this as easy as possible. But yeah, I think just and so what's that rule of thumb for a 110 outlet that you probably have in your garage already? If you do have a garage, how many miles of driving do you get per hour? So like how much would you expect, if you were able to plug in overnight, how many miles of range would you get?
Well, you could get, so with that outlet type, it's 3 to 5 miles per hour. And so you say, okay, you come home at 10 p.m. and then you're leaving at 6 a.m. That's 8 hours that you're plugging in at the minimum. I think most people get home at 5 or 6. But so 8 hours times 3 is 24, 8 times 5, 40. So you can get, around that many miles. So if you had driven only 25 miles the next day and you plugged in, and you're set to go. If you drove, 30, 40 miles, and it's the same kind of thing. So if you're driving, and that's the thing that most people don't realize, the miles they're driving, they realize the time that they're in the car, because a lot of people are sitting in traffic. So I would encourage, if someone's looking to get an EV, do exactly what Kevin said, do your research and figure out how far you're actually driving in a day, because you probably can get by with that 110, 120 volt outlet, which is the normal standard typical outlet that you find in garages in your home, and it's pretty ubiquitous.
And nowadays, with bigger batteries, we actually have more flexibility. If your car has over 200 miles, someday you might drive 70 miles a day, and next day you don't drive anywhere, and next day you drive again 65 miles. You're still okay, because there's plenty of time between the times that you drive to still use the level 1, if that's your choice. So it provides a bit more flexibility because of the bigger batteries nowadays.
Great. Well, I'm afraid we are actually, I think, out of time. So there are some great resources. There's a lot of resources available. A lot of the questions that got asked, some of them were addressed in the chat, but we do try to create information, you know, so that these questions can be answered. So there's a lot of great resources up on screen. Those can be available a lot. You can find a lot on the Drive Electric Minnesota website. And then I'll maybe pass things back real quick to Catherine just to explain the ride and drive. But then I think for those who need to go, we can let you go if you have other commitments.
Yeah, we'll now show a video that we have actually of Lisa with her electric vehicle. I think the video is about 7-8 minutes. So if you want to stick around for it, feel free to. If not, we'll see you next time at our next webinar. That's actually going to start. And that's we're sharing 3 different test drives, and that's going to start in about 15 minutes, but there's a different link for that. But if you want to stick around, I'm gonna, my colleague Laura is gonna show that video right now. Thanks everyone for joining.
Hi, I'm Lisa Thurstin, and I am here in St. Paul, Minnesota to showcase my electric vehicle. I have a Kia Niro plug-in hybrid electric vehicle 2019. So we got this car in January of 2019 when our other car unexpectedly died. We have 2 people in our household and just 1 vehicle, so we really wanted a vehicle that could get us around, take us up to the Boundary Waters and to my family in Wisconsin. My husband is over 6 feet tall, so that also limited us on what we wanted, and we needed to be able to carry a canoe and kayak and so forth. Here's where I do 90% of my charging at home in my garage. We have a simple cord. And then the indicator light goes on. In South Minneapolis, doing some errands and just charging up. The light will go on in a moment. It's as easy as that. I'm here in Hudson, Wisconsin, showcasing the new DC fast charger provided by Zeph Energy, as well as the level 2 charger over here. We're located on I-94, the interstate that goes from Michigan to Montana. This project was part of a U.S. Department of Energy project where we were installing 12 DC fast chargers along the corridor.